All right, and we're live. What's going on, everybody? This is ADHD. What's going on? Aaron Nordstrom from the great band
What's happening?
Gemini Syndrome. What's up, James Kopechny, my partner in crime? What's going on, everybody?
Not much, man. How you guys doing
What's
tonight?
This is I swear, like, this is like probably my most awaited interview yet we've probably done on this show. I got introduced to Gemini Syndrome from an ex-girlfriend of mine, and like the relationship's gone, but my love for Gemini Syndrome is still there. What a great band! What a great singer! How are you, Aaron?
I am very well, man. Thanks for asking. And thanks for the kind words.
You're welcome, man. You're doing very well in this. I know that California is experiencing a lot of fires right now, and a lot of, well, from what our friend Noah told us, that there's a lot of heavy rain now and flooding. It's also attributed to that. Are you doing pretty good in that situation?
I wouldn't know anything about it, man. I left LA about 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. Where are you living now?
I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, that's fucking awesome. Do you play a lot of poker?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
I don't gamble. I don't drink anymore. So really, the two main reasons I think the people have to live in Vegas, I don't do. So I don't know. I'm an albino in the desert. That doesn't make any sense either. But I'll tell you what, man, ever since we did both of the first two records out here with Kevin and Kane, respectively. And every time I was here doing an album, I loved this town. I don't know why. I love that it's 24 hours, and I'm definitely a night owl. I'm super nocturnal because I'm albino and I don't like the sun.
Right.
So I can function, and I've always been that way. Like, since I was probably an early teen, I've always been nocturnal. I've always liked staying up till the sun comes up and then sleeping through the morning and waking up around noonish. That's just my preferred hours. So I can get away with that out here. Cost of living is more effective than LA. LA's insane.
Yeah.
I get a lot more out here for less money. And I'm still close enough to Los Angeles, like, you know, the label's based out of LA, partly. Our legal team's based out of LA. So, like, I'm close enough that if I have to do stuff that's business related, I'm not too far away.
You can make it there.
Brian's actually, yeah, and I don't drive because I'm legally blind, but I mean, it's a short bus ride, a few hours, you know, or if I really need to be going there. Brian moved out here, I think about a year ago now. So he lives on the other side of town from me. And then AP is moving to Vegas. I think he just got a place locked down last week. And it looks like Megs is also moving out here at the beginning of next year. So we're all kind of making the migration a little bit back east, but still West Coast for sure.
Good deal.
Yeah, we used to live out in the West Coast too, and the prices are just insane. You know what I mean? Whenever you live in Southern California, it's fucking nuts. You know, you're expected to pay extra fucking money for absolutely fucking everything. People living on top of each other, like literally. You know what I mean? Like most of the fucking living situations are, fucking 5 to 7 people living in a 4-bedroom house. Yeah, it's just nuts. You know, it just costs way too much. You're absolutely right.
Here's a crazy story for you. When the band first formed back in 2010, pretty shortly after we were a full unit, we ended up living together as a band for a good few years. And not only did we have the band, but we had family members and friends from college and our buddy Tree, who would come and do video stuff for us on the road. There was a point where in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the valley, we had 10 people living in there.
Wow.
And then this is in the early days, so like this is right around the recording of Lux and even before that, and then the couple years into that record cycle, where we're going on tour for 8 or 9 months a year in a van at that time. So we're in a van, and then coming home to literally like it was 24/7, 365 of constant contact.
Right.
Between all of us. So, there were some good fights that came out of that, some good arguments, but at the same time, there was some really good bonding that happened, and it forced us to be a family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And forged the friendships that, have stood for AP and Brian and myself, have stood the test of time in a big way. We've seen a lot together, so I get it, man. But, at one point after we kind of moved out of that place or whatever, I was living in a little one-bedroom bungalow renting in Silver Lake. And it was a nice neighborhood and all that, but for less money, I literally came out to Vegas and got a 3-bedroom house with a yard.
Yeah.
For less money, and it's like it's not even a discussion at that point. If you can get used to the heat in the summer for like 4 months, where it's brutally hot, but again, it's a 24-hour town, so half this town doesn't even go out during the day. You get used to that, and the rest of it's cake.
It makes sense. Like a lot of desert animals are nocturnal animals. It would make sense that you would go there and you're a nocturnal animal and really fit into that fucking desert environment. That makes sense.
And there's a cool scene here, man. There's a great local rock scene. Really reminiscent of like when we were up and coming in LA, where there was a community of people and the bands were all friends with each other and they were all helping each other out at shows. So that's still very much alive and kicking out here, and that's cool to see. So there's always something to do if you want, but at the same time, if you don't want to be social, you don't want to be public, it's just as easy to stay home.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of got the best of every world out here. I love it.
That's fucking badass. That's super fucking badass. So you guys included Megs in the band. What was it?
Megs.
You know what I mean?
It's Megs.
There's a funny story about that I have to interject. That we told once at a radio show. So we were performing live to a studio audience, and then we were live on air, and they were doing just questions in between songs or whatever. And the guy who was running the thing called Megs.
Yeah.
We all knew the story, but we started laughing, and he's like, what's so funny? So back in the day, when Cold Chamber went on tour with Pantera, Vinny used to always call Megs.
Yeah.
And Megs was like, I can't correct him, he's VP. So he never did. So in the 20 years of their friendship or whatever it was, Vinny Paul would always see me, he'd say, what's up, Megs? He's like, what's up, VP? Never corrected him. And so I just thought I always chuckle now when somebody calls him Megs.
I love correction.
Makes me think of him. That's pretty funny. But yeah, it's Megs.
Yeah.
He's full on in the band, and I love that guy to death.
It's fucking awesome, man. So I've heard rumors that there's going to be full on Ozzfest this year in many cities. That's at least the rumor. Are you guys have any plans to play it?
I haven't the slightest idea right now.
It was actually brought to my attention.
I'm sure.
It was actually brought to my attention in an interview the other day, and I was like, I hadn't heard anything about it myself. You know what I mean? But I was like, man, like another full-on Ozzfest, at least 20 cities would be a really cool tour,
It would be. I'll be honest with you, this is the first time hearing of it, so.
Yeah, it might be. I swear it might just be an industry rumor. You know how those things happen? Somebody just hears something and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna spread this," and it was sent to us by a drummer of a band, and in decent standing. But he was like, "Oh, I think there's gonna be an all out Ozzfest this year," and I was like, "I don't know," and I was like, "Well, maybe those guys are gonna be on it."
I think it'd be dope if they did it. You're looking at 20 years later.
Yes.
And there's been other successful, festival tours like that. Like Family Values was pretty good for a few years. Not Fest, stuff like that. But Ozzfest is where that whole thing started, man. That was me being a kid going to see Megadeth and Hyper Negative and Pantera.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So those were some great memories, dude. That was the first time I ever heard Slipknot. I remember they were opening main stage. I think that was 97 maybe.
Yeah.
And we didn't know who they were yet. We were walking by, and it's like 11:30 to 12:30 in the afternoon, and you just hear this thunderous double bass and just these crazy people on stage. What the hell is that, man? What am I experiencing? And then it turns out, they become what they become. So it's cool to be a kid back then.
It was, dude. It really was, man. Like, I remember hearing shit like that for the first time and just like losing my fucking mind. Like, they had something that like other metal bands didn't have at that time. You know what I mean? Like and it wasn't just about their members and size, but like their unity and their ability to play together and just like this sound, and it was really amazing, at the time. So you guys are getting ready to gear up to put out a new album.
We are in the process, that is for sure.
Right. What is the outlook of that new album? Like, I want to hear a little bit about the maybe the inspiration, maybe the what you guys are what the album's going to be about. Some of the inside track on the new album.
Well, we kind of planned this out that it was going to be roughly a trilogy of a concept record, right?
Okay.
So Lux, meaning light, was kind of our first light to the world, was our first exposure. The subject matter on that record deals a lot with my personal coming of age, a lot of my youth, a lot of my, like, the tragedy or trauma or whatever that happened when I was young, and having albinism and trying to learn how to cope with that. And I might have a mail package here, so hold on 1 second. The dog's prodding the food. Move it or lose it, pal. So anyway, all right. So Lux's birth, light, the first exposure or whatever.
Yes.
All right. Freaking dogs. So the second record, Memento Mori, means remember that you have to die, and that was really coming to grips with your mortality as you get older. I didn't believe it when I was young that things changed. That things change so drastically as you become older. I just thought it was a bunch of crap, like I think most kids do. But the reality is that 20 to 25 to 30 to 35 for me was, those were big jumps. And I expected to be nothing but more of that in the future as I get older, But part of that for me was coming to grips with the fact that this is a temporary existence, and that's really what that record talks about. This record, being the third in the trilogy, is really focused on death and transformation. So kind of the ending of that cycle.
A lot of deep philosophy to that.
It's going to be a dark record, I think, in a lot of ways. I think I'll still manage to have, some semblance of positivity like I've done in the past when I'm dealing with, sensitive subjects or sad subjects, sad material, depressing shit. But I've always tried, probably for selfish reasons, to just remind myself that, at the same time to remind other people that there's always a light at the end of the tunnel, man. There's always hope, even in the fog.
Right.
But ironically enough, where they talk about, does art imitate life or does life imitate art? We've had this plan for a long time for this record to be about death and transformation. And in the past year, man, I've had some health issues. I was struggling for a long time to get sober.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, I'd had a seizure at one point where my heart stopped for a minute and a half.
Oh, Jesus
I had to do
Christ.
CPR. So I flatlined, I died. And then in October, I had a fucking heart attack.
Oh, wow.
And, I have a stent in my heart, and I take anticoagulants every day so I don't have another one. So in the process of writing a record about dying, I faced death very, very head-on more than once. And it's very ironic to me. So we're definitely talking about that kind of stuff, and nothing will tell you about your mortality more than, really knocking on death's door and saying what's up.
You believe it has some kind of manifest destiny, causality, and effect?
Right.
Yeah, I've always believed that, the more you believe in something, you know, especially like through art. And it's actually the reason I wouldn't fucking release certain music of my own. That it will actually affect your real life. That there's a possibility that what you put out to the world will reciprocate itself to you. And I know that might sound crazy to some people, but I think that there's a part of like what you release to the world reciprocates itself to you. And then has a profound effect on things that you can't control, because like it's almost like we have the ability to create our own universes within this world that we live in, but we don't realize that the art we put out and the things that we put out like actually reflect back upon us.
Absolutely.
And that's
I think that
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
No, I think that words have weight to them.
Yes.
And when you put something out and you actually say it out loud, you know, I think that has an impact on the reality that you choose to create or perceive or whatever.
Yes.
In a major way. Like, I couldn't agree more. And then especially putting it into art. It's one thing to just say it. But then it's another thing to, like, you know, in the case of music, put it on tape so people can have it. And then to go perform it night after night and have the meaning behind that, you know what I mean? Behind the poems that go into these songs, there's a purpose for it. There's some sort of root inspiration, and that's getting manifested over and over and over again.
Yes.
So it's almost impossible not to have that kind of dichotomy of life and art reflecting each other, man. And it's very weird. I remember sitting in the hospital after my heart attack, and Brian came to see me. He's like, how odd that we wrote a song about death, and here we are. Like, you're telling me, man.
Yeah.
Super weird. How am I going to write about something that I have no experience in? Though? That's how I've always written, experientially. It's always about things that I've gone through, or things that I've seen people go through, like directly close to me. You know what I'm saying? It's always an experiential knowledge of my existence gets put into song. So how was I going to write about death if I hadn't flatlined out? So I guess I knocked that one out.
Oh, it's a bad one to knock out, though. You know what I mean? That's a bad one to knock out. Oh man, I can't. You know what I mean? Like, that's the one you don't want to try to knock out of the park.
Right.
That's that one. You know.
Believe me, it wasn't my intent.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, but that's amazing that because I've always thought that about art. Like, if you reflexively.
You lie to that one. And so my attitude was rebellion and terrorism. I have a roommate running through the house too.
Oh, no big deal. No big deal.
We have a busy household here.
No big deal, man. Shoot, get him on the line. Let him say hi. You know what I mean? Like, that's not a big deal. You know, we're good people here. You know what I mean?
For sure. For sure.
Yeah, that's just crazy, man. Like, you do the deal. You start writing the album, and then you actually have a heart attack, and you nearly pass away. And you could have died, you know. I've thought about that about many art forms in my past. And I at one point in time, I wrote a song about basically, like, I had felt like my whole life was trash. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, man, like, I'm just not going to be that person. I'm just going to die. And I knew not to put it out. If that makes any kind of sense. Like, I just knew not to put it out. You know, I was like, dude, there's something about this. Like, if I have to perform this, like, if it catches wind and I have to perform this, like, this will probably kill me. Like, I will wind up in endless, perpetual depression. You know, or something worse.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. In that regard,
magic, like I swear to God, like, music is like magic.
Like couldn't agree more.
You know, it's like the only form of like real magic, like that actually exists. When I hear the song Stardust, like, it sums up almost all my emotions. Like, it like gives me like this great feeling in my heart, but like at the same time, like my thoughts on the song are like. It's such a great song. Like, it's an amazing song because, like, I think about it in like multiple different directions. What was it like to write that song?
You know, it came and happened really quickly with that tune. We had been at the studio all day, and we were looking for one more track for the record. That was our goal. We pretty much had the album put together. We were pretty happy with it, and we were very happy with it. And we're like, we need one more. So sat in the room, and we hacked out the music for it. And that took, most of the day or whatever. And we had a rough skeleton laid down. And I was going to go home and work on it and hopefully have something by the next day or two. And we got back to the condo we were staying at, we were renting. And I went across the street to this little bar and grill place that was open 24 hours that I went to all the time. I sat down and I ordered some food and I got a drink. And then I was just kind of thinking back to this particular period of my life in my teens, where I grew up with like a very interesting, very close-knit, very family-oriented group of friends. We were kind of all the disenfranchised kids. We were the metal kids and the punk kids and the goth kids and the stoner kids, the freaks, and we all congregated together and we all kind of lifted each other up through those years. They were tough for us or whatever.
Right.
And the word Stardust actually came from a motel that was in the town I grew up in that we always used to have parties at. And, man, the song just poured out. And I called Kevin up. I texted him. I said, he's still at the studio. I mean, I'd been there maybe 20 minutes. The whole song was done.
Wow.
It was just like in a flash. And I was like, are you still at the studio? And he said, yeah. I said, I just wrote it. Can you come and scratch track it? And he said, I'll come pick you up. So he was only a couple miles down the road, scooped me up, went to the studio. We recorded it. And I didn't say anything to any of the band when I got home. They just thought I'd been at the bar hanging out. And we went in the next day and we pressed play, and the whole track was done. And they were just like, what the fuck happened, man? And that became the most successful song off that record. So it was really just kind of an explosion of inspiration or something. I don't know how to put it without sounding too melodramatic, but
it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, it just happened, man.
Effortless
and
power.
Typing on my phone in my little notepad thing, and I was like, we gotta lay this before I forget it.
Fucking
so
awesome.
It was a super fast process. It's cool to me that song takes on such a meaning for people, all sorts of different meanings. Like what it means to me is one thing, right? But people have used that to like get married, or use it as their song at their wedding, or got engaged to that, or it's their song, or whatever it might be. But it definitely is kind of a love song in the sense of I'm saying I love you to a giant group of people. There's not one particular person in mind. Like one of the guys I live with now, I've known for 23 years. And I've known him since I was a young kid.
Yeah.
And he was always kind of like my big brother, man. I still call him my big brother. And he basically is like family to me, But it was him and people like him that were in that crew that really shaped and molded how I dealt with society at large and how I felt that I fit into it. It really gave me some kind of sense of purpose and some kind of sense of belonging, almost like the gang mentality in a sense. You know what I mean?
Oh, no. I totally get it. When I was that age, and I'm not sure exactly how old you are, but I'm 35, and we hung out in a gigantic crew, in my teens, that was just we were all the disenfranchised people, we were the freaks, the goths, the fucking what have you, and that's who we were. You know what I mean? At that point in time, and other people would try to come in, they would try to pick on us, and we stood up for one another, and we fought the good fight against other people that would try to take advantage of us, and we did the exact same thing like you're talking about. We go through hotel parties. I remember we had a trailer in a trailer park that we would all go hang out at, and not to get myself thrown in prison, but I can remember there was one set of people that they really messed with us, and we lit a guy's car on fire. That fucking happened. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
We lit a guy's car on fire, and that shit fucking happened. And
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in St. Louis. And so it was a mixture of disenfranchised kids, people from the ghetto and like really rich kids from like the west side of town. And so like you would always have to deal with that kind of mentality of like, we stick to our own clique, those guys do that thing, we do our own thing, you know? And that's the way it was.
Yep. I grew up outside Chicago in the western burbs.
Okay, yeah.
Not too far north of you, man.
Yeah.
And you just described it to a T. We lived in the place where we all hung out was a very affluent town. We had a little river downtown, a brick like walkway, a big huge park called the River Walk. Yeah. And we all congregated from all different towns around the western burbs, all the way out to like the rural country parts, you know.
Yeah.
But there was definitely like the group of rich kids that lived there that hung out at the Walgreens parking lot across the river. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody had their set in their own way.
Yeah.
Kind of funny, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the mentality back then, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure if it's the same way now, you know what I mean, with kids growing up, but that was definitely
I don't think so.
You know? I don't think it is either.
I don't think it is.
I don't think they have that like
social
interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like face to face. You know, I grew up in the age we grew up in the age where like pagers became a thing all of a sudden.
Right.
Yeah.
And eventually cell phones were a thing, but we lived in the time before the phone, you know? And like, it was a different thing, man. We live in the future.
Yeah.
So I look at like my little brother's 12 years younger than me. And his experience is just painfully different than mine. And I feel I'm sad for him in that sense because I think that I can't speak for generations before us, but it seems like our generation really, the more and more I meet people as I've toured over the last, however many years, and made friends with people from all different parts of the country and different social status or whatever. It seems that was really a thing for our generation as teenagers. And it didn't seem to exist before. Like, I don't think my sister had that. She's about 7 years older than me. I don't really think she had that so much. She had a small group of girlfriends that was really tight. That was it. Like, we had a fucking army, man. And my brother certainly didn't have that growing up. I just don't think it existed other than our little pocket of reality. I'm grateful as hell for it.
Yeah, growing up in the 90s was awesome.
Dude.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Fuck, man. I remember...
Everything was new and fresh. And
hope.
Technology was new and fresh, and music was evolving and changing in a way that it hadn't before. And man, yeah, it was good. And we complained about it like crazy back then.
I remember kids like being like, "Well, who's your favorite band?" You know what I mean? Like, and like the three choices were in the clique. Like, it was like either like 9 Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, or Tool. And being like, you know what I mean? Like being like, okay, like who's your fucking favorite band? These are like basically your three choices.
Pantera was in there for us.
Yes, absolutely, Pantera was in there. But like, it wasn't that many. You know what I mean? It was like 5 or 6 bands, and like you had to like kind of pick your own, your own choice when it came to the music you listened to, because it was part of your identity. It was really big a part of your identity.
Absolutely.
So much bigger than it is now. I mean, it was like, that's who you are. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of awesome, though. You know what I mean? Like, you always had a home.
Absolutely.
You always had people. You always had friends. It's so hard to even explain that to people now.
Right, man.
Everybody had a place to meet. Everybody was friends. Every disenfranchised person was a part of something.
You were always, if you weren't welcome there, you were welcome with us.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yep. That was the vibe back then.
And I remember my friend Mike and I was 14 years old, and we're walking from his house down to the river walking where we hung out, and it's middle of summer. It's like in the 90s, and it's humid. And we got black boots, black pants, white button-down dress shirts.
Yeah.
I'm wearing a leather trench coat. He's got a leather biker jacket on. We got our boombox, and we're blasting Typo Negative Bloody Kisses in front of the high school.
Yes!
That was me at 14, man. Loved it. And then, like, when I got into a really big black and death metal phase for a while. a couple of years later. So I had
Yeah.
like the full-on military boots with the pants tucked into it, military style, and still my trench coat, but now there was spikes in it. You know,
Yeah.
super long white hair, like uber goth. I was so goth. I was the goth kids from South Park, man.
Oh man, like
It's a great character.
just brooding in my own misery and distaste for the world.
yes.
Oh man, I was those guys, man. It was great.
South Park is a
Oh
great
man,
cartoon.
that's fucking.
I was dressing like the Matrix before it came out.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too, man. Like, just get the duster on and just like, oh, dude. Just
Yeah,
like,
bro.
Oh man.
I always wanted a duster. I never had a duster. Man.
Oh, you never had a duster? Oh.
Nah.
Oh man.
I just had the Brandon Lee, the Crow trench coat. That was my jam.
Yeah. I actually just bought like just for like memory's sake. I bought a big leather duster on auction. And I've never even worn it. I've never even worn the damn thing. I gotta be honest, but I was just like, I fucking want this. I really just, I fucking want this for memory's sake. You know.
You got street cred for having it, dude.
Oh man, but that was the day, man. Like that's where we grew up, man. That's so fucking cool.
Yep.
You know, no one gets to hear these stories about like, because like back then, like everyone was basically, they were way more together then than now. If I was to like make a generalization, like people were in the music scenes, they were way more together then than now.
Yeah, just in societally in general. I've been saying this the past couple of years. I've been observing this, I should say. That it's like the more connected we become technologically, the more isolated we become as people.
That makes sense.
And, you know, like anybody can reach out and have any bit of human knowledge that we want at our fingertips. You can call anyone, anywhere in the world at any time, instantaneously. You can video chat with them. You can get in arguments with people you've never met about shit you don't know anything about. And, you know, talk like you would never talk to somebody face to face.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Twitter comments and YouTube comments. Like you read some of that stuff, and it's like you would never say that to their face.
Ever.
You get knocked the fuck out. Because you get knocked out.
Yes.
Somebody's going to punch you and your teeth are going to fall out. It's going to happen. And it's like, we didn't have that as kids. We didn't have that kind of like, that
keyboard warrior
bowling bumper safety system. Yeah, man, you said that to somebody back when we were kids, before you had all this like separation. Man, you got in a fight. You got in a fight, hands down.
Right. Absolutely. You know, I remember getting in those fights too. You know what I mean? Like I remember getting in those real fights. And that's what's sad is like no one thinks that like what they say has consequences anymore. Like there are none, you know? Like, oh no, you threatened that guy, that person. You're a bad person. No, I mean like they called me out. You know, like let's throw hands. You know, that's the way it was back in the day. Like if I had to fucking talk shit on somebody, I had to throw hands. You know, if I couldn't throw hands, I probably shouldn't say anything.
You know, we've turned into the back in my day people.
Yeah.
Back in my day.
I know, I'm an old man, God damn it.
We're those dudes, not man. We're those dudes that I said I'd never be. Nobody talks like that now.
Yeah.
You are.
No,
Here I am.
Yeah. Back in, like
all those old people were right.
Yes, they were. You know, they saw that they had the foresight. They had the foresight, damn it.
Through it just like we are now. We'll be telling young kids like one of these days, man. Like I never believed anybody who was like, you know, once you hit 30, everything changes. Bullshit.
Boy, does it.
I would venture to say that to the day I turned 30, things changed. I stopped healing the same way. I stopped recovering from hangovers the same way. I stopped recovering from sickness the same way. Injuries. Now I have, shoulder and knee problems. Man.
No, I agree with that, man. I can't recover from shit anymore. I swear to God. Like, it's just like something you're absolutely right. Something changed once you turn 30. You're like, oh, fuck. You wake up in the morning and you're like, when you didn't have the hangover, you're like, oh, shit. I drank the water, like, last night, because once you become a professional alcoholic, you're like, well, I'm going to drink water before I go to sleep. I'm going to make sure all that shit and, like, make sure I don't have a hangover in the morning. And then, like, you start going through oh, no, I can't really deal with my next day.
Nope.
This shit's not working anymore.
Nope.
Fuck.
I know that story all too well, man. It's a very real part of my life.
I hate to say it's a very real part of my life, too. I'm an alcoholic, and I don't really take care of it as well as I should, I drink way too much. I really do. This is an honesty moment, I really do. I drink too much, and I probably shouldn't. And it affects my life.
Quit while you're ahead, man.
I hear you.
Speaking from the source, quit while you're ahead, because, that's another thing I didn't believe when I was young, is that it's a progressive disease. And it absolutely is. It doesn't panel out. It doesn't plateau. It doesn't become manageable. It doesn't. If you're already talking like that, quit while you're ahead, man.
Yeah.
It ain't going to get easier. I'm very lucky in the sense that, like, my hitting bottom wasn't necessarily me losing everything that I own or going to jail or fucking my life up so bad that it's irreparable. I didn't have to get quite there. Mine was more on a mental bottom, but I got to bottom. And, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Right.
And it becomes an insane habit. Crazy insane. And it's not easy, man. I've been struggling for years to, I'd be sober for a minute, and then I wouldn't be. I'd be sober for a minute, and then I wouldn't be. And, it's still a daily. It's become different. Something's changed recently. Like, I don't have the desire to go back there anymore because it sucks so bad when I do.
Yeah.
So that has been a blessing. So I'm not really, I wouldn't say fighting it anymore. I'm just kind of learning how to readjust and learning how to live a different way, I think, is the hardest part. Because when you drink, everything becomes associated with it, right?
Yeah.
You go hang out with somebody, what are you going to do? Let's go get a drink. Go to the bar. Let's go to the movie theater where they serve you drinks. Let's go to the sports game and get hammered and watch hockey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everything, let's go play pool while you drink while you're doing that. Let's go bowling, drinking while you're doing that. So to step out of that and start living a life that doesn't involve that it was tricky for me. It still is. It's still, and obviously being a singer in a band, every night some kind of bar-like establishment, whether it's a bar or a club or a huge venue, it's there every night. And I don't mind it. It's not so hard necessarily on tour because I'm always busy. I always have something to occupy myself with. So that definitely makes it easier, and it's definitely easier to perform when I'm not hungover or half drunk. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
Certainly easier to perform, and it's nice to remember all the stuff that I do. That's pretty awesome. So that's a perk. I know what happened yesterday. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, dude, I've had some days where I'm like, oh shit, I don't know exactly. Like for the most part, you know what I mean. I don't get that bad, but it's just dude, I know I'm too far out. I know
right.
I know that.
I'm not gonna preach. I'm not gonna preach.
Oh no, you're fine.
Both are, man.
We actually did a video series on I was actually in a cult when I was younger. That was like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Crossroads program or the Pathways program or any of that shit, but I was actually
I'm not too familiar, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, I was actually in that when I was younger. So like I was actually a member of a cult that preached sobriety, and I think that's what actually fucked my head up. And so like
that makes total sense.
You know what I mean? Like, so like I've had like a fear of like going back to anything to get sober. You know what I mean? So like I know I was in a cult. I know that's a fucking truthful thing. You know what I mean? Like, and so like me trying to go back and get sober, it's like, oh shit, like I remember what this was like dealing with people.
What those people were like.
Yeah. So like it's been like a whole fucking thing for me.
And if that's your only exposure to it too, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
It's hard to shake that. It's hard to shake that imprint or whatever. I feel you. It is out there, man. It does exist.
So what are you guys' plans for touring in the future? Like that's
Well, basically at this point, going back to talking about the record, I like how your title of your podcast is totally apropos. I love it because this is absolutely an ADHD conversation. So we definitely took our time on this record. Part of that falls on me with my health and stuff, trying to get my shit together. But it doesn't totally fall on me in that sense. There's a lot of this is our third record, man, and there was an absolute progression. I think from Lux to Memento. I think we grew as songwriters. I think we grew as musicians. I know I grew as a singer. And we want to keep that trajectory, for the rest of our career.
yes.
So you can't just squeeze this one out. You know what I'm saying? So we've definitely been taking our time. Like I have written and then rewritten more than one song on this album because I'll write an entire tune and be like, that's just not it. I'm just not sold. I'm not sure that that's the best I can do. And a lot of rewrites, and then not to mention the fact that we started out with this cluster of songs.
Yeah.
And then every time Megs and AP would come into town, for like a week here, a week there to sit down at Brian's place and start working on pre-production, they would just start cranking out more and more stuff.
Yeah.
So the more stuff that came out, the cooler it got. And so then we'd be looking at songs that were in that first cluster, like they're throwaways. Like, yeah, we're probably not going to even touch that one. So it was kind of hard in the sense to keep up with, like, well, what should I be working on? You know what I mean? Like, what songs should I? Out of this group of songs, that all of them are good on some level. Some of them are exceptional and obviously exceptional. But like, and some of them have potential to be exceptional. So it's like, where do you start? So I was kind of overwhelmed in that sense. But we're just, I've got a handful of demos that don't have vocals on them. I have a couple handfuls of songs that do. Pretty much done, at least for this part of the process, because once we get in the studio with Matt Hyde, that'll all be up for grabs, and we'll be editing and changing and just trying to make everything as cool as you can. But at this point, I think we're really looking to hone in on, like, what our finished product's going to be, and then actually start tracking it with Matt. I think once that process starts happening, it's going to go by fast. We've gotten... As a whole and individually, we've gotten very efficient in the studio. We did, whereas we did Lux in 16 weeks with Kevin. We had fewer cooks in the kitchen for Memento Mori, so I ended up playing guitar on that record. I did keyboards on that record, so it was really only three of us. And we knocked that album out in 7. We knocked that out in 7 weeks. So it was less than half the time it took us to do the first album. So I feel like once we get in there and start really working, it'll be a flash and it'll be over, and we'll be ready to start touring. And at that point, it'll be like the beginning of every record cycle where we're on tour for, 10 months out of 12.
Yeah.
But that's coming soon. It'll be, I guess, the first part of next year. I know that's about a year late from what I had hoped for. What I was saying when we got done touring on the Memento cycle last November. I was like, yeah, it's going to be out by spring. Because at the time, I had, this is November 3rd. We got home, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be out by March. Like,
oh no,
I was high. Must have been high. You know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't, but I mean, what are you?
Yeah.
You're going to have this out in 4 months? You're insane. No way. So. At this point, take us the extra year, but so be it. I think it'll be worth the wait, and
it will.
Like I said again, this is the third record. This is a really pivotal album for bands, and it shows your evolution and your growth, and really sets you up to have like the staying power to be around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I was actually telling a band the other day, man, like your third album, it kind of solidifies like it takes a while to find the right production team, the right rhythm to write, and all these things you have to learn, as a band. It takes a long time to learn how to write as a band. Like that's really hard too, and putting the whole package together, it takes a while. And there's a lot of bands that have great third albums, like amazing fucking third albums that like outshine like everything fucking else. Because that's how long it took them to fucking put everything together as a band.
Sure. And it's the evolution of it's just a cycle of life in general, but like it starts out, kind of unmolded and kind of raw. And as time goes on, it gets more solidified and more polished. More shiny, and more. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
A great example is there's a ton of great examples, really. But the evolution of a band like Tool,
yes,
or Type of Negative,
yes,
or Stabbing Westward, or Smashing Pumpkins.
Sorry. My bad.
Yeah, man, that was one of my favorites growing up.
My favorites.
Bands like that. When you look at their first record, It really, I think Tool and Type of Negative are two of the most radical changes. Deftones, too. If you go back and look at the early Deftones compared to the last three records, it's like you see this really matured, finished product.
When White Pony came out, man, I was just like, wow, like you guys can be this.
Yep.
You guys can be this.
Man, and they did.
Fucking.
That's another reason I'm so excited to work with Matt Hyde on this album, man, because he did those last three records. And I just think that was Deftones I'm not saying that they can't do even better, but at the highlight of their career right now, with those last three albums. And it's interesting, man, because it's certainly not that we didn't want to work with Kevin or Kane.
Okay.
I love those dudes. But they've got their thing, they're on their roll. And we just decided on the third record to kind of change it up. Not to mention the fact comparing the three of those guys, we'll say the Churkos and Hyde, is that the Churkos are very in touch with the technological end of music. We did a lot of programming stuff, which is really cool. But the same end can be achieved in an analog way.
Yeah.
And Kane and I kind of jumped into that on the Menso, because most of the keyboard stuff that's in that record was actually played. It wasn't programmed on a sequencer or something like that.
Yeah.
I actually performed that stuff. So Matt has a very analog approach to doing everything, and a very get your hands dirty kind of mentality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be cool for us to kind of write in a different methodology. I think it'll make the record sound different from the first two. Not to mention, you have somebody like Megs in the band now too, who is such an amazingly creative guitar player.
Yeah.
And has such a unique thing to his own. Like, he wants to make more of the live show. Like, he wants to make as much of it live as we humanly can, as opposed to running the keyboards on a track, so I don't have to play it live, which is definitely awesome not having to do that.
Yeah, instead of just using X32 with backing tracks.
Right, and having him compensate with some guitar effects and his pedal board and crazy talk box thing. I just think it's going to be an interesting sounding record, man, especially considering what we've been through to get here, and as a group, individually. Just watching the world change as we get older, and the crazy times. Like I said earlier, man, we live in the future.
Yeah, we do. We do, man. And it's not the future we thought we were going to live in. There are no
Dude,
flying
Elon Musk,
cars and shit. You know what I mean? Like this.
Hey, I just saw David Draymond post on Facebook a couple weeks ago that they're getting ready to put the first floating car on the market.
Oh.
That's a legit thing. So we will have floating cars in the next probably 10 years.
Okay.
Elon Musk is talking about creating an interface that lets your brain directly communicate with the computer without having to type.
Yes, I've seen that. Yes, I have read that.
Think about the change that creates when you're dealing with computers that can already compute on such an insanely efficient and fast level. But then you're hooking that up with the brain, which actually computes information faster than computers. I remember watching his podcast. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yes.
And they were talking about this. And he's like, the problem isn't the functionality of the human brain. The problem is bandwidth.
Yes.
Right now, we're limited to anywhere between 2 and 10 fingers to communicate. So if you can cut that out and you can have the synapses firing directly from the brain to the computer and back in real time, that changes the whole game. It's crazy, man. I can't even imagine what that will allow us to start to do as a species.
It's going to be
wild.
Fucking goddamn crazy, dude.
It's pretty wild, man.
It's going to be crazy.
And again, speaking to our age, I remember, the first text messaging was typing numbers into a pager and you had to decipher what the word was based on your... You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Took me about a month to figure out that 76453 was smile from my girlfriend at the time.
Oh my God.
What does this mean? She's like, I'm not going to tell you. You have to figure it out. 76453 means smile.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
Or we would page our friends the cell phone, or the pay phone number of the Denny's.
Yeah.
851-005-0155. And they would know to meet us at Denny's, so you didn't have to make the call back.
Okay. I'm gonna like let out something that's like it's gonna get us all fucked over, but dude, we all used to go up to people at a mall or something else and just be like, "Hey, man, you got 25 cents to use the phone?"
Oh yeah.
Just bum cash off of people, like that was like a total scam that like all of us did.
They still do that in Vegas.
Yeah, dude. Like you just walk out to people and be like, when we were kids, and just be like, "Hey, dude, you got 25 cents? I need to use the phone. I gotta make a phone call. I gotta make an international phone call. And like you could make like fucking $30 in a day.
Yep. Every day I'm hustling.
Yeah, dude. We all used to do that shit, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, like the kids these days are like, "Oh no, we got cell phones. We got all this shit." The crazy thing is like social media brings us all closer together, but I don't think it really does. Like there's no unity.
No, it's a bunch of, anonymous, pseudo-anonymous, people just kind of spouting off opinions. And the other thing that's changed so much, like there was always, in the war on information, there's always been disinformation. But
yeah,
because everything is so much exponentially larger now, there's so much more information, and it's happening at such an incredibly faster rate to be, sorted through or sifted through by us as conscious beings, that it's so easy that disinformation goes with it. So people have become, as a whole, as a general statement, people have become very used to just like regurgitating in things that they heard, whether true or false. The same way that we learned in school to regurgitate stuff on a test. You didn't actually have to understand it necessarily if you memorize the crap.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you learn how to spit it back out, whatever you just were fed. And it doesn't necessarily make it true. So people aren't reading into things. They aren't fact-checking. They're not checking multiple sources when they're sharing these opinions. And a lot of the times they're dead-ass wrong. And that kind of stuff starts, these huge fights on these wars on the internet, these hashtag wars. It's crazy to me, man. Maybe I am just an old dude now. don't feel like it, but maybe I am. But it changes the game a lot. You have to be a lot more intellectually responsible for what it is that you put out in the world. Because if you're getting it from a source that's bullshit, then you're just feeding bullshit back out. And that makes the cycle of bullshit bigger and bigger and bigger.
It's the bullshit wars.
Yeah.
We're actually about to do like a prank. That's gonna be like me playing like I'm gonna play Alex Jones like as a goof, and
Yes.
James is gonna play Vladimir Putin as a goof, and like we're gonna
God.
just do it's gonna be fucking hilarious. Like I've got the character, we've got the characters down completely. It's gonna be fucking hilarious. But we're just like kind of like doing it as a goof, and like but you're right, man. Like no one's fact checking anything. No one's getting the real news anymore. Like it doesn't exist. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone has an agenda.
Yep.
You know,
Alex Jones.
dude, he's so fucking. I'm not even gonna say it.
He's amazing.
I mean,
He's
goddamn.
an amazing example of what humanity is capable of.
I know.
I'm not talking.
I know it.
I'm not for or against him. I truly don't care. None of my business. But the guy comes up every once in a while. I was first exposed to him in the movie Waking Life. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Okay, yeah.
It's a movie where it's all about like a dreamscape, basically. He's lucid dreaming, and he just encounters all these different philosophers and weird people that are spitting a bunch of information at him. And then so he filmed the movie. He filmed the movie, and then he painted over the frames to make it cartoonish.
Yeah.
Very killer movie. One of my favorite films ever. But Alex Jones has a spot in that movie. He's really young, and the scene with him is driving around the car with a loudspeaker on the top of it, and he's talking to the microphone, spitting out about government and independence and freedom and blah blah blah. And it's a really poignant speech. And so back in the day when he was young, I followed him quite religiously.
Okay.
He made some very interesting points. A lot of the times he was right, and he was talking about stuff that people didn't want to touch, and you weren't going to get on NBC or ABC or CBS or Fox or whatever.
Yeah.
And then InfoWars happened.
Yeah.
And then InfoWars happened, and there was this steady propensity towards sheer madness that he had going on, and it still has going. Like I just saw a video of him going to Seattle. I don't know if you caught this, and he's like chasing people down the street because they gave him the finger. He's like, "Hey, you come back here! You come back here and say something." He's trying to pick fights with dudes in the streets. It's just like, whoa, bro.
Well, you know, us at InfoWars, we wanna go ahead and we need you to buy our bone broth, and if you don't buy our bone broth, we can't make money.
Oh man! And then all the supplement pills he's taking.
Yeah.
Running around like a crazed orangutan and
Yes.
just like flexing his arms and
we love it, dude. It's just so funny, dude.
That's great.
We
great.
I
I
can't help.
run a podcast. You can't help what, but
I can't help but like, I mean, dude, like we're spoofing it, man. Just spoofing it, man. It's just it's so funny now. Like he used to be a legit, like partly a legit journalist. You know, he was talking about 9/11.
yes.
Before anybody else.
Back in those days, he had a lot of things to say that were worth listening to.
Yes, absolutely.
And so what I was going to say a second ago. So I also have a podcast, and I don't know how podcast culture works if you're supposed to cross-promote people's podcasts.
We'll definitely do it.
How that game is played, but I'm gonna plug Joe Rogan again. If you haven't seen it, there's a Rogan and Alex Jones podcast.
Yes.
And it's 3 hours.
Yes.
And Alex brought the whiskey, and Joe brought the weed.
Yeah. Yes.
And Alex just basically gets completely twacked out of his head, talking about all sorts of just insane shit. And it's 3 of the most entertaining hours of
madness.
Yeah, dude, it's human interaction you could ask for. It's pretty profound. Yes. Alex is turning all red because he's getting whiskey drunk and he smokes a joint with Joe. It's just like, you want the whole enchilada, Joe? I'm gonna give it to you. It's like a pro wrestler or something. It's like, dude, you are amazing.
Well, you know what? If we can't sell this bone broth, I swear to God, we're going to have to go to hell.
You know what? You do that pretty well, dude.
Yeah, dude, we're going to do that. We're going to do it's going to be Vladimir Putin with Alex Jones, and it's going to be fucking hilarious.
It's fantastic, dude. If I was there, I would come as
dude, can you do a good Trump? Can you do a good Trump?
No, I can't.
Oh, we're looking for somebody who can do a good Trump because that would be hilarious. Like Trump, Alex Jones mediating, and then like Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, no. The world we live in, dude, it's so insane. It's so insane.
People just find this shit on the internet and listen to it.
I've definitely detached from social interaction on the internet as of the past few months. I generally, I have all the standard accounts. I have an Instagram. I've got an artist page on Facebook. I have a private page on Facebook. I have a Twitter account. I've got all those. But at this point, if it's not related to the band or music in general, like a friend's band or something like that, if it's not related to that or comedy, I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy.
Me too. I
love stand-up and I love music, man. If it's not that or a meme that I find funny or maybe informative, like I posted one that was showing that the Chinese character for music and the Chinese character for medicine are almost identical. Like, I find that shit fascinating, so I put that up. And then if it's not that, it'll be about animals, usually pitbulls, because I'm a huge pitbull fan.
Damn right.
Better than people.
And if it's not one of those things, it's probably not going on any of my socials at all.
Yeah.
Because it ain't worth it, man. I don't put anything political on there. I don't put anything political. I don't put anything religious. Like, those are my deals, and I don't need to share it with the world. And it just doesn't invite anything positive ever. Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
I can't even talk politics with my mom anymore, dude. We just like
it's gotten bad, dude. It's really gotten fucking bad. I mean, like, God, I don't even know how to talk about any of those situations. It's really bad.
It's just not worth the headache, man.
Yeah, I won't talk. Yeah.
Inevitably, you're going to make somebody mad, or they're going to piss you off, or both.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Either or.
Without even trying, just by posting an opinion, you're going to piss somebody off or offend them. It's like, not worth it. Not worth my time. I'll write songs.
Goddamn right. Goddamn right.
Said you practice kung fu?
Practice kung fu. I've been training traditional Chinese Kung Fu for about 20 years.
That's pretty cool.
Wow.
I study a style called Southern Praying Mantis.
Okay.
In Chinese, it's pronounced Chu Ka. It's a pretty obscure style. My teacher is Sigun Yusifu Grandmaster Manuel Rodriguez. He was the first non-Chinese in history to learn this system.
Okay.
He's a prolific martial artist and scholar, religious scholar. But one of the craziest people I ever met. I love him to death. He's up in Ventura, California. But he's been like my dad since my father passed away when I was 15. And I met Murphy when I was 16. And he very quickly became like that's what Sifu means in Chinese, is teacher or father. So he very much became like my dad. And pretty much like his other son. So, yeah, I've been doing that for a long time, man. It's one of my great loves. I'm not a fighter by any means. I haven't fought in those 20 years on the street. I haven't had to. We talk about it in the art of war, that the highest goal of a warrior is to win without fighting, to avoid the battle at all costs, because the only way a battle ends is with death. So that's been my philosophy the whole time. But yeah, I love it, man. Did you guys ever see, there was a cartoon on Nickelodeon called Avatar, The Last Airbender?
Yes.
I have not.
You familiar with that?
Yes, I have a young niece, and yes.
So there was a character in that show called Toph. She was a little blind girl. I don't know how familiar you are with the show. Do you remember Toph?
Yes.
So Toph is based off of my Sifu. He did all of the, motion image capturing for that character.
Wow.
So the whole system, or that whole character, is based off Southern Praying Mantis. And the guy who did the rest of the choreography, the main guy for that show, is a guy named Kisu. He's a Northern Shaolin practitioner, and another one of my teachers and friends. So he did all the rest of the characters for that. So that was like a really big, step in like the cartoon making, using like these motion capture things. So everything you see in that cartoon is actually people doing legit Chinese Kung Fu.
Wow.
Just turned into cartoons.
That's pretty cool.
That's fucking badass. That's insanely badass.
Yeah, man. I'm a fan. It's been hard since the heart attack, man, because I can't really do. I don't know where my heart's at. I was having, not to get too personal or boring, but I was having problems with my insurance for a time, so I haven't even been able to do a follow-up. I have it all worked out at this point, but I haven't even done a follow-up with my cardiologist yet since the heart attack in October.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't have insurance, so they couldn't see me, and I couldn't afford out of pocket. So that's all resolved. It's all good. So I have an appointment on the 21st. But that being said, I don't have an okay from a doctor that like you're healthy enough to exercise. And doing some of the crazy kung fu stuff can be like really intense on the internal organs.
Yeah.
And I don't want to kill myself. So.
Wow. So do any of your fans know this happened?
To some extent. I mean, sure. I know it's. I didn't make a big deal about it. I ended up having to make a social post about it because I had posted something when I got out of the hospital, and it was misinterpreted by somebody as meaning something totally different.
Yeah.
And it caused a ton of drama for me. I'm not going to get into that.
We don't.
I basically put up a post saying I wasn't going to say anything, but it seems now I have to clarify that when I said I'm free, it means I was out of the hospital because I suffered a heart attack on Wednesday, and I went into the whole explanation of what happened. And so, that was on my private page. You know what I mean? I didn't put it on Twitter, didn't put it on Instagram, just like my friends and family page. And so word's gotten out to some extent, with the exception of my lyrical content on this next record, because I plan on keeping that pretty close to the chest.
Yes.
As far as meanings go, and I can explain that in a minute. But besides that, my goal has been to be as transparent about what's gone on to, the degree with which I'm comfortable publicly. And by that I mean the health issues, my issues with alcoholism. I've always been open about my depression. I've always been open about my previous suicide attempts when I was younger, as a means to let people know that they're not alone.
Yes,
and
yes, yeah.
That's my intention with this too. So I have no problem talking about the fact that, you know, I've been struggling to get sober for a long time, and it's been a rough road. And I have no qualms about talking about the fact that I had a heart attack at 36, because that straight up is a direct result, a direct reflection of how I lived my life from the time I was 18 or 19 up through my 20s and 30s. You know what I'm saying? I made poor choices in a lot of ways for my health. So, yeah, I want to be very transparent about all that stuff, man.
We just gotta.
I don't know how public it is at this point. But you know, it also doesn't need to become like a huge conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This happened. So you all know. You need to ask questions about it. Go ahead. And if I'm not comfortable answering them, I won't.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely. No, I feel.
But if I am, I try to be an open book, man.
Absolutely. I honestly didn't even want to bring up the fact that you're albino.
I don't mind talking about. I don't ever mind talking about that. That's the more the merrier, because so many people don't even realize what it is.
Right.
Still,
absolutely.
You know, 36 years old, and I'm meeting people, and they're like, "Are you albino?" Yeah. Are you Caucasian? Yeah. Yeah. Fucking weirdos.
It's like a whole thing. Like, I was like, dude, I don't want to bring that up. And like, you were the first person to bring it up, and I was like, okay.
Oh yeah.
He's gonna bring it up.
No, I'll tell you, man. In my experience over my years, I've met a lot of people with albinism. I've been involved in this thing called NOAA, which is the National Organization of Albinism and Hyperpigmentation. Since I was a kid. They have a magazine they put out quarterly called Insight, which is ironic because we're all legally blind. So it's pretty cheeky on their part.
Wait. Are you all legally blind?
Yes, with albinism, there comes a myriad of eye problems.
Oh, wow.
One being that your retina is actually pigmented, and since we have no pigment, that part of our retina is not pigmented.
Oh,
and
shit.
that is the part of the eye that registers 20/20 to 20/70 vision.
Okay.
It's virtually impossible to not be considered legally blind if you have albinism. Now, there's varying degrees. There's also things like astigmatism and nystagmus, which is an irregular curvature of the eye. So what that prompts then is the shaking of the eyes, because the eye, since it's shaped oddly, when the light hits the lens of your cornea, light goes to your retina, and that information is processed by, it's sent to your brainstem and processed by your brain, right? Well, because the cornea is bent, it's not hitting the retina directly, so the eye is trying to constantly compensate to get the light to hit the retina direct, but it never does. So that's why the eyes shake all the time. Not to mention that the retina, like I said, isn't pigmented to begin with, so even half of that function is nil,
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I was just looking through my pictures, my physical pictures that I have, from when I was a kid. Again, dating myself, old. There's a picture of me from, I think I was about 7, and I was at one of these conventions, and there was a picture of all the kids that were at the convention. I think we were going to like Six Flags or something that day. And there's a picture of like 100 little kids, all these little albino kids with their big, thick 80s glasses and shit. And it's pretty adorable. But over the years, man, especially from being in Gemini and having this band, I've come across a ton of people around the country of all ages that have albinism. Some of them, I'd say most of them, I was the first albino person they met ever.
Right.
There's a dude down in Arizona I'm friends with now, and he was older than me. He was a biker dude. Some albinos can drive. I did drive for 5 years when I was younger, but I hit my mid-20s and my eyes started getting worse, so I stopped. But I was the first guy with albinism he'd ever met, and he's like in 40s or 50s. So he went his whole life with this condition.
Wow.
Like imagine in a sense, imagine being born a black person and never meeting another black person ever in your life.
Jesus.
You know what I'm saying?
That's hard to deal with. Yeah, that would be hard to deal with.
And my experience, like I said, was nothing like that. I was exposed to people with it from a super early age, you know. And my mother was very active in taking me to get optical treatment. I had contacts when I was 3 months old. I was still an infant. And she would put in contacts for me every day to help my eyes develop as best as they could. So it's cool, though. Like, now I have my one friend. She's like a tiny sister to me, man, or like a niece or something. But she's 14. I met her in the very beginning, so she was like 8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, I keep in touch. I email with her mom like on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, and I keep up, you know, to date with how she's doing in school and all that kind of stuff. I got a couple friends like that are younger than me. They're approaching teenage years, which is when it gets the hardest.
Yeah.
You really start realizing that you're different. You really start realizing that you're not like anybody else you know, and that's a weird place to be. And kids are cruel, and you get made fun of. And you know, that's where my depression really started. Was when I started really having an identity. It was hard, man. It was hard growing up. So it's nice for me to kind of, you know, pay it back to these dudes or ladies or whatever, and be able to like know that when things start to get rough, they have somebody they can call who's lived it. You know what I'm saying? They don't have to read a book to understand it. They can talk to a living, breathing person who's experienced exactly what they're going through. And I take that responsibility with pride, man. It's awesome.
I remember growing up, and there was a friend of mine that had, I'm not going to mention his name, but he had, like, he was part of our clique, and, like, he had meshed hands. And what I mean by that, like, he had fused fingers, you know. He had 3 fingers instead of 5 fingers, and, like, he had 2 thumbs, and, like, he is what they would consider, like, you know, in a circus, the crab boy, you know. And, like, he was, like, one of my best friends, and, like, I really loved the guy. He was really a great kid, and I would always defend him, you know. I would always defend the kid, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this, to be honest.
No,
I
get it, though. I mean,
you know,
it can happen in all sorts of different ways, man.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's awesome, though. Like, you're... Hello!
Dropped my call. I don't know what happened.
Oh, yeah. Let me get James back on here. Oh, shit.
Sorry about that.
It's no big deal. Hold on. All right, we all there?
Yeah.
I'm back, yeah. All right, there we go. Sorry about that.
Sweet. I was like, oh, shit. Like, he starts talking
I
about...
know I didn't hang up on you because it beeped at me. It actually beeped to drop the call. But I'm on Wi-Fi at my house, so I don't know what the fuck. Yeah.
Oh, it's no big deal. Like, we're all here. But, dude, like, okay, so... Yeah, dude, thank you. Like, what are some other things, like, you want to talk about? Like, is there anything else?
Other than I want to adopt every pit bull on Earth, but I can't. No, man, I think we covered a lot of great stuff.
Cool.
So the record's coming along. My health is improving. My mental health is improving.
Good to hear.
I feel like a new human. It feels good, man. I'm excited about what the future holds for, you know, Gemini Syndrome as a band and for me as a person.
Dude, I'm gonna reach out to everybody to get this fucking, like, man, like, you're like one of my favorite singers, like, absolutely.
Thanks,
like,
I appreciate that.
Not trying to suck your dick, but
hey, man.
totally one of my favorite singers.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Man, we're gonna spread this everywhere, man, and we really thank you, and this has been a great episode, and Dude, I hope we get to do it again.
Yeah, man.
I'm sure we can make that happen.
Right on, dude.
All right, man.
Well, Aaron,
all right, we'll talk to you later,
thanks
brother.
for your time, dude.
Thank
All right,
you, man.
Dude.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me
Have a
on.
good night,
All right,
man.
you're welcome.
You too. Talk to you soon.
Peace. It's been ADHD. Later, folks.